That's fine. Perfect. Do you guys need more chairs? No. You good?
We're good. Oh.
You good? You do? بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي ونسلم على رسوله الكريم أما بعد. First and foremost, I think I speak on behalf of the community when I say thank you to Dr. Murphy and his staff for coming and allowing us to host them. Honestly speaking, it took literally just one email and one phone call for them to accept this invitation and for this entire show to go into motion. So this really does show their exemplary leadership, their qualities, their traits, because knowingly we have put the trust of our children in their hands. So again, I speak for the community. I thank all of you on behalf of the parents that are here, the parents who are not here, and the children that you guys all teach and that are becoming role models of the community under your stewardship. So again, thank you so much. Tonight is a night where not only our children and our parents, but the faculty from the South Huntington School District can meet the parents, can meet us. Especially during these tumultuous times, a lot of us have questions, and I'm sure they have questions as well that they want to have answers for. But some of the questions that we might pose is during these tumultuous times, how are we preserving what this nation, this strong nation has almost ascertained for centuries? So without further ado, I want to give it to Dr. Delaya. I want him, I know he's leaving early. He has somewhere to go at 7, and it is outside of school hours. So again, thank you, Dr. D, for coming, Dr. Murphy, and I'll give you guys the point.
I'm always on a mic.
You might have to move.
That's okay. Can you hear me good? All right, thank you. And thank you so much for having us here tonight. We truly appreciate it. And thank you, the food. You know, I know a few people have asked, I love spicy food. I was telling Wajma that when I get Chinese food, I get the hot oil and I dump it all over, and people look at me like, whoa, how do you not have a hole in your stomach? But it's a pleasure to be here. I'm going to apologize in advance. I do have another meeting tonight, but when Dr. Murphy shared with me that him and some of his staff were coming tonight, I said, do you think it's okay if I come? And he said, absolutely, and I know, I had the approval here. So, just a few words that I want to say to all of you. Your prized possessions are our prized possessions as well. And what I mean by that is the safety of all of our students, is my number one responsibility as superintendent. I want to make sure they're safe as if they are my kids. Well, my kids, they're in a different school district. I want to make sure that they're safe and they're comfortable and they could be who they are. And I think that's something that's special about South Huntington, is that we appreciate everybody. Our diversity is our strength. And we've been known for that. People that don't live in this community know that our diversity is our strength. And I've been in the community for 18 years. I know a lot of you, Wajma, Ms. Laraki, through my days at Maplewood as the Maplewood principal. And after I finished at Maplewood, I spent a couple of years in the business office, at district office, and then I became superintendent of the best district on the planet. So I am super fortunate to have such a great community, working with everybody, and South Huntington is a special place. And what's important to all of us is that when your children come to school, that they feel comfortable, that they feel appreciated. And that's something that we spend a lot of time with to make sure that that does happen. And yes, I know we're living in very difficult times. And I know a lot of these times didn't just start, but they're kind of at the height of the news each day. And I know, a lot of the students are, when we went to school, I think it was different. We didn't have social media. I know my kids at home, they're asking me questions like, how did you know that? And it's because they were on the internet. They see a lot, they hear a lot. It was different for us. We got through it though, right? We communicated pretty good, but it's definitely a different time period now. And don't think about that all the time when we're working with our students. So, I apologize that I have to leave early because I have another, I'm negotiating with teachers, their new contract, and I have to be part of that negotiation session. But, I thank you for allowing the high school. I know they're the main attraction here tonight. You have a dynamite team over at the high school. You have a long-term principal now. He's not interim anymore. He's going to be there for a while, and, we're all super, super happy about that. And, Dr. Murphy and I have worked real closely, in his role as deputy superintendent, and that just because he's not technically the deputy superintendent anymore, we're still going to be working super, super closely. We got to make sure that high school, it's number 3 right now in the niche.com rankings, and as I told Dr. Murphy earlier, he promised he'll make him number 1. I'm only kidding. He'll try though. But once again, thank you so much for your hospitality. Thank you so much for your inclusion of all of us to be part of your family here. That's super important to us, so thank you. I did the same thing. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Absolutely.
Without further ado, this man needs absolutely no introduction. To be honest, he called me multiple times and it went to voicemail. Every time I called him, he picked up on the first or second ring. So kudos to him, and I appreciate his hospitality and his eagerness to come. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Imam. Thank you so much. Hello, everybody. How is everybody doing? I like the kids. You guys be loud. It's all right. We can talk. So, one, I wanted to say thank you so much for coming here today, or coming and seeing us today. I know we're interrupting your youth programs and some of your programs tonight, but I wanted to say thank you. And some of the things that we decided. I became principal of the high school about 8-9 years ago, and then and one of the things that I enjoyed in my first time was the diversity that I saw in this community. So much so that I decided to move here. I believe that South Huntington is a place where anybody can learn, can grow, can become whoever they want to be. And I think it's because of the parents and the community that band together, but that doesn't last. That's something that we want to keep, but that takes work. That takes a lot of work every day, because you know what? As awesome as our kids can be, as amazing as our families can be, our community can be, things upon the outside world, things that come to life, always have an effect on where we live. And that is the one thing that we need to make sure as a school, and I give my solemn promise that I want to make sure that parents, that community members always feel heard and welcome, and that they're included in the things that we do. Because your children, as Dr. D'Elia said, are some of the most important people in the world, because they're our future doctors and lawyers and politicians. They're the people that are going to be taking care of me, of you, of their parents when we're older. And if we don't give them a strong foundation through faith, through community works, through education, then what's the point? And that's really what it is, and we wanted to reach out because we can't do it alone. It takes a village to raise a child. It takes a village to shape and mold a community. It takes solid bedrock, solid foundation to make sure that we're doing what we can do. And that's something that we wanted to promise, because too many times, and this is not the only community group that we're going to. We've gone to the Assembly of God. We're going to other community groups, because we need your help. If there's something wrong, if your child is feeling like they need to talk to somebody, if they need services, if they need to feel they're not feeling inclusive or a part of our school community, I want to know that. I want to know, because they need to feel that way. They need to feel that they're the most important thing in the room when somebody's talking to them, when they're with their teacher, and that's every child that's in a classroom. And that's something that we always want to make sure that we push forward, and that we're always giving that. So there's a couple services that we wanted to provide and talk about, and we wanted to give you a chance to ask questions if you had them, so that you can feel more. Because a lot of times our days, our lives get so busy. We work, we have other things, community obligations, and then you look at your watch and it's 9 o'clock at night and you're saying, who am I going to call? And my son, my daughter, they just told me about something that I needed to know about, or that I'm concerned about them and something that's going on in school. So who do you reach out to? At 9 o'clock at night, it's really hard, but I want to tell you that there are things, there are people like me that you can reach out to, that we can help make sure that you feel supported and that we're working together for the growth of your child or your community or your family's community. So we're gonna pass back and forth around. I want to introduce the people that are next to me because as much as I love my kids, and I do, and I was talking to your mom, and I'm very much like his principal was. I get to know every single student's name. I want to know what they're doing, what their interests are. The people right here are the reason why I can do that and I can help, because like I said, it's not about one person, it's about the group that are servicing and helping everybody. So I'm going to kind of pass back and forth, and we're going to talk about some of the things that we can do, and that I want your students to hear, because all of you sitting in the back, the little ones, we want to make sure that you find what interests you, what makes your passion. What do you want to do with your life? Because that's the most important thing. I know I found what I wanted, and it was because a teacher helped guide me. Somebody said, this is what your life path should be, and help support that. And I want to give that back, and I want always for students to feel that way, no matter who that is. So I'm going to bring up, we're going to introduce, and then I'm going to bring up, we have Mr. Blair. He is the head of guidance K through 12, and he is somebody who works on the social emotional needs and the academic needs of your children, as well as Dr. Richards, and he is an assistant principal who's also a trained social worker who talks about, is going to talk a little bit about if there's anything in need or if you need support in that area as well. So I'm going to give this over for a minute. Mr. Blair.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Again, my name is Mr. Blair, and I feel very welcome to be here. My parents actually grew right up over here on Ontario Street, and they've been in that house. They've passed away now. My sister lives in that house, and I've passed by this establishment, I can't even remember how many times. I've always passed by it, and I've always looked at it in awe because it was always such a beautiful structure, always clean. And when I was invited to come here this evening, I said, yes, let's do it. And I've been going back and forth to the doctor lately, and I was looking at my heartbeat. My heartbeat's only at 67 beats per minute. So this is how welcome I felt as soon as I walked in here. Everyone was playing. I had a lot of individuals come over and greet and say hello. So that is the type of appreciation that I really, really want to thank each and every one of you for. And that's kind of segues into what it's like being at the high school in terms of working with your kids, and even at the elementary schools. That's the type of love that we like to give to the kids. We want students to feel welcome. We want everyone to feel supported. We want students to say, hey, Mr. Blair, I want to be an astronaut when I get older. Okay, that's cool. Let's see what we can do. Or, hey, Mr. Blair, I plan on going to Harvard or Yale when I graduate Walt Whitman High School. That's great. And she actually came back and visited me a couple of weeks ago when she was here last week. She came in and said hello to me, and I always talked about her, Salma Laraki, to see how she's doing, and she's always proud. She's a proud Whitman student, and she always talks about everything in life, and it's great. Those are the types of experiences we want each and every one of you to have. We want to be able to support everyone here. So again, if anybody ever needs anything, I'm located up at the high school. I'm down in the elementary schools visiting students. My door is always open to each and every one of you. And I just wanted to thank each and every one of you again for having us here this evening. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Okay. Once again, I'm Kendall Richards, and I'm one of the assistant principals at the high school. One of my roles at the high school, I primarily work with 9th grade. However, obviously, we all work together with our students to support our students. A little background about myself. I was actually born and raised in the Bronx, in New York City, which is really like a melting pot. In the community where I lived, you had a little bit of everybody who you lived with, and I lived in an apartment, so the people next to you from all different race, creeds, nationalities, religions, everything, which I think that really helped me in terms of being able to support people who look like me and people who don't look like me, people who I agree with and people who I don't necessarily agree with. But we all know that we're one community, and that was really helpful. What actually brought me to the school district, I was actually a social work intern back in the early 2000s, and it was so great that I was able to actually come back and fulfill my dream and actually work within the South Huntington community. I got lucky because my buddy here, Mr. Blair, he got a promotion. So when he got his promotion, I was able to slide in his position as dean, which was fantastic. And then I was lucky enough, Dr. Murphy pushed me up, and now I've become an assistant principal. So that's been a fantastic experience for me. One thing that we truly pride ourselves on at South Huntington is the supports and the services that we're able to provide our families. Okay, and one thing that we do provide is we have a department which we call student services. Anybody hear of student services before? And familiar? Fantastic. So with our student services department, which I do find is unique, because in some schools they have student services, some district they have student services, but they're not necessarily full-time employees. They have to ship them in from other places, they have to contract out, they're not there every day. One unique thing for us is we have a full team of social workers and psychologists and guidance counselors who work in our schools every day. They're full-time employees, so they're there every day to support our kids, because we all know that in many instances, anybody, regardless of what your situation is, at times you can need that support, especially students and especially families as well. And we're there to provide that support as needed. We also know and understand that there might be situations and circumstances going on in people's lives that are happening outside of the school walls and the school building that can and will in many instances have a direct impact on what happens inside the school. There's many times where there might be something going on at home or outside the school that'll impact how a student can perform in school. Does that make sense to everybody, what I'm saying? So we want to make sure, and we understand that, and we take pride in that, so we understand that we have to provide those supports in school. So we have different people that students can talk to. In many instances, it can be confidential, as we know there's certain issues that come up that are very sensitive, and we know that it needs to be on a need-to-know basis. And we work closely with families to make sure that we're providing all the supports that we can to support our students in their time of need. So, students in the back, remember, okay, if you're ever having any concerns, you need support, there are people in your schools that you can talk to, from your teachers, to your guidance counselors, to the coach, to your administrators. Okay, we have people that can support you, and if the person that you go to doesn't have the answers and can't provide that direct support, they will find a person that can, as will we. All right, in many instances, if it's a 9th grade student, it might come to me, and then we will walk you through the next steps that we recommend to provide that support, whatever it might be. Okay, so well, thanks so much again for having us and for having me, and obviously we're going to continue talking, but I'll be here to answer any questions as best I can. Thank you so much.
What's up?
So neither, I don't consider myself to be old, but me, along with some of the parents on both sides, we are the part of the alumnus of Wall Women High School in the South Huntington School District. So they know, whenever I speak about women, I'm almost always biased. We had an internal meeting and they were saying that, hey, we might have more students in the Half Hollow Hills or the John Elwood district. I said, if we start off, we're gonna go with Whitman first. So I, along with my cousin and some of the sisters on this side, we went to Whitman when James Polanski was a principal. A lot of our parents don't know who he is. Obviously, a lot of us, we know who he is. The one thing that I always appreciated, and I mentioned to Dr. Murphy, which his colleagues mentioned that he does as well, if you ran into him one time, he more than likely would not know your name. He'll pull your ID, look at your name, and I kid you not, the second time you ran into him, he would always remember your name. He'll never forget it. It's a great quality to have, because as students under his stewardship, it's like as if we owe it to him to go above and beyond. It's like as if we owe it to him to give our 100%. And it made us feel like, we're part of the family. That's what it boiled down to that. So I'm happy and eager to hear that Dr. Murphy has the same qualities and traits. I hope he doesn't leave us in a few years for the big check jobs. So hopefully we can keep him in-house, because Mr. Polanski made a living off of our school year, but rightfully so. And I'm sure the faculty at Women are doing an excellent job as well. Unfortunately, we live in times that are not the best. Are times always good and bad? 100%. There are good times, there are bad times. But as parents, we have our, concerns. concerns of obviously international stuff. This is not a political event, but maybe for our own kids' sake. Hey, maybe something happened at school, or there's a curriculum change. How does that affect us? So I will leave it to the parents. I know both sides have their questions, so we will start off from the sister side, and then we'll jump back and forth. So obviously, you guys know better than me. The mothers are usually the ones that care about their kids' education, right? It's the fathers who are always busy at work. So obviously the mothers are going to sell out the house. So if they have more questions, no problem. But we will be respectful. We'll take it one turn at a time, and we'll go from there. Who wants to go first? Yeah. Do you need a mic? Or I'll repeat the question, and then one of them would answer. Go ahead. Okay, yeah, so for the viewers at home, so the sister is asking, because of the times that we live in today, the international kind of outcry and chaos that's taking place, essentially it boils down to almost two sides, which is terrible to say, but she's saying that I understand living in this country, the country supports one side, and we don't want to name names, it's not a political event. Now, for our kids' sake, how are they being taught about the crisis that's taking place? Are they allowed to, have an internal dialogue with the professors, with the teachers? Are they allowed to, express their concerns, share their thoughts in a holistic, healthy environment? Or is it that the representatives from, Albany are mandating teachers teach what's taking place currently in international borders in a certain way or a biased way? So how are teachers, faculty in the South Huntington School District specifically addressing this issue? You don't need to use this.
I don't need that. I'll use this one. All right. So honestly, I'm going to go even before this conflict, because it's something that in education that we all are supposed to, because we've had everything from gay rights to political Democrats and Republicans. The job of a teacher is to be unbiased. The job, no matter what your own personal religion, no matter what your own personal viewpoints are, as a teacher, and we are held to a strict moral code to be able to follow this. We are supposed to say, we teach to the students in front of us, and we teach them an unbiased approach. So whether it's talking about politics, whether it's talking about two different countries, religions, whatever it is, we're supposed to do that. Albany, to my knowledge, has given us no viewpoints about what is one side or the other. What I can tell you from South Huntington is, and I will go from a perspective of a principal and someone's at the high school, we encourage students to ask questions. That's how they become knowledgeable, just like I'm starting this conversation. And those conversations, and I charge and I empower my teachers and my students to have those respectful conversations. And they're done in a method where teachers are give the most support, and it's an unbiased support to say, let's talk about, let's make sure you feel comfortable in this conversation, let's see what your thoughts and viewpoints are, and let somebody else. So much so, to just give perspective, we have 3 groups that at the beginning of what you're speaking of, we thought we would have some feelings of hurt, and it was our Jewish Student Association, our Muslim Student Association, and our Christian Student Association. And we proactively went in and we brought all 3 groups and their membership in. And we said, this is what's going on, but it doesn't have to affect us here. We can have personal feelings about it, we can go, but we live in a community where your neighbor, the person that lives next to you to the right, and the person that lives to the left of you, could have different viewpoints, different religions, different feelings, and it's okay. And so much so, those proactive conversations, those messages to say, hey, it's okay to feel a certain way, or it's okay to be, to have your own viewpoints, but we still work and live together. And so much so that those 3 groups decided to band together and do a bipartisan where they're doing bracelets for UNICEF, which means they're raising money for students that are affected by this war, no matter what side. And that is done through all 3 groups where they turn around, they're building these bracelets themselves, they've raised almost $1,000, and they're giving it to students or to children, no matter what side that we're talking about. So that's the type of relationship, that's the type of conversations that I want students to have, because we live in an area that's diverse, and we need to learn how to be, to respect our fellow beliefs and also respect our varying viewpoints. And I think we do a good job of that. Doesn't mean we don't keep learning and growing, but I feel that South Huntington has done a good job with this, and that's at the high school level, but I truly believe that at the middle school and the lower level, and that unbiased conversation, that open and willingness to be able to say, let's talk about it, it only helps our community grow. I hope that answers your question.
I think that was great. Just to give you, I don't want to air out our private meeting that we had with the town supervisor. Myself and a few others, we met with the town supervisor. And this is just to put you, the faculty, the administration, in our perspective, in our shoes. We met with the town supervisor, and one of the things that was shared, which hit home, one of the responsible people from this community, this locality that was present, he says to the town supervisor, he says, look, I've lived here for over 25 years. I went to school here. I grew up here. My kids go to school here. But I even went through 9/11 here. But this is the first time in my life that I feel I don't belong here. Which hurt, because the town of Huntington, they put out some social media posts, whatever. Us as people who congregate, constituents of this locality, of this mosque, even of the South Huntington School District, we're all one family. It's all one unit. Just because someone holds a different opinion doesn't mean I have to agree with it. Yeah, I respectfully disagree. But we're supposed to respect and honor one another. We're supposed to serve one another. And this was kind of the goal or the mission of what's taking place that we've been articulating to all of our congregants, all of our families. And believe me, I've been speaking to the kids, and the kids have been giving me feedback. At least so far, you guys have been doing a tremendous job. If you weren't, I would have never invited you, but but you guys are doing great. Yeah, no, kudos to you guys. I mean, we hope in the future it just keeps getting better and better. Go ahead.
So much for you guys coming out here, especially on a weeknight. I know you guys have family members, so I really appreciate it. 2-part question, very quick. Based off what was saying, back when I was in high school, there was no concept of anti-bullying or anything like that. Without giving away my age, back in the day, there was no thing as anti-bullying campaigns and stuff like that. What is the school district doing to screen for bullying? One is just regular boys being boys or kids being kids, and one is the threshold where you guys take bullying really seriously, number one. Number two, school safety. We're in this situation right now that it's so unfortunate that we're talking about. Every other day there's some sort of incident that happens with firearms in school. What is the school district doing in terms of safety for our children?
I'm just writing down this question, making sure I get both 2 parts, so I'm sorry. So honestly, so we take all it's not to give a blanket statement, and as Dr. Richards and Mr. Blair had said, all bullying is taken seriously. the gravity and the consequences for that bullying are different varying upon what it is. What I can tell you right now, there is a zero tolerance policy to bullying when it comes to sexual orientation towards religion and towards anything like, because those are some of our non-negotiables. And really it's because we don't want to penalize students, we want them to learn, but sometimes our consequences have to be harsh enough to be able to teach children that these are not acceptable forms, not now, not ever, and especially when we get into adulthood. So and where we talk about that, but I also believe that consequences in student, I believe the district believes this, and even in my role as deputy superintendent when I was before and now principal, is you can discipline a child over and over. You can yell, you can punish them, but is that really teaching them? We learn even in life that sometimes that conversation or being able to teach them how to be empathetic rather than just this is the consequence for when you do something really doesn't teach them. It just teaches them about a consequence. It doesn't teach them about the wrongs of what they're doing. So you have to address this twofold. And through our student services department, through counselors, through administrators, through teachers, we train ourselves and we continue to train on not only giving the consequence to make sure that doesn't happen again, but for that student that's involved to understand why. So perfect example, not in this district, but I know in a district in Huntington, and we've had similar. A student had made a negative epitaph about, had drawn something that was negative towards a Jewish student. So what do? We had that student, not only was there punishment, but also we had that student go over to the Jewish Center in Comac, and they spent the day there and talked, and they met with the rabbi, so that they got the consequence they needed, but they also learned the reasons for why it was wrong. And I would do that with anything and anyone to make sure that we make sure that it doesn't happen again, not that they're afraid of the consequence. And the second part of you is this violence school, and I absolutely agree. I think violence has always been, you look at the 60s, the 70s, there's always been violence, even during the civil rights movement. There's always been violence, and unfortunately, schools have always been a part of that, but what makes it worse is the social media, just like we're seeing with the conflict now. Because after it happens, 10 seconds later, you know about it. It might have taken 2 weeks, 30 years ago to know about it. You may have never known about it. But now with social media, it makes it worse. So there are things that we have, but regardless or not, there's things that we do as a district. So I know that Elwood is moving towards this if they have not already done already. So I don't want to speak for Elwood, but I'll give, because I know family members are in Elwood. But for South Huntington, we decided that it was time to bring an armed security force not into the buildings, but onto our properties. And at first, our families, I was actually nervous, because remember, I live here too. My son is a senior at the same school I go to. And I was like, how do I feel about somebody with a gun on school property? And I was conflicted as a parent and as an administrator. But what I will tell you is, I wish we didn't have to have it. I wish that that it's not something that we need. It doesn't mean that our community is unsafe. It doesn't mean, but it's like buying car insurance. I never want to get in a car accident, but I have insurance. So that, God forbid, I ever get in a car accident, I have it. I never want to have one of my schools, one of my kids ever face violence that you're talking about, or ever have to succumb to that type of violence. But I'll take the insurance policy to make sure that somebody's there to address it. And I think that's where we are as a nation and a school. And I think my viewpoints have changed over the time as I've gone through it. I hope that answers your question, sir.
And just to piggyback off of what Dr. Murphy had said, as an administrative team, we laugh, we cry, and we also share our concerns with each other on a daily basis. On Mondays, we're at Walt Whitman High School at 6 o'clock in the morning as an administrative team going over a whole list of items, and we're always very reflective on what we do and how we can always make the community, make the building a better place. And that's one thing us as administrators that we do. That's why we are so close, and we meet a couple times throughout the week in the morning time to go over these same exact concerns that you have, to see what we can do as a team to lead to a better place.
There you go.
Sisters? Well, go ahead.
So it may not pertain to high school, this may be younger, but high school.
Sure.
So people have different beliefs and different lifestyles. I know that starting in Again, we need to respectfully agree to disagree, but if so, if these services are available, how can I, as a parent, access such information from home?
It's a great question. The answer is yes. You have, as a parent, you have the right. There are books, so to go in, elementary is not my forte, even though I have a good knowledge of it. So I'm more than happy to answer. But the rule applies whether you're elementary or secondary. There are books that we are mandated as an elementary level and a secondary level to teach, and those books do not have those type of viewpoints. What we do have is that we have what they call DEI curriculum that allows, it's supposed to be inclusive to all people within our state and our nation. Parents always have the right, if they feel that they're not comfortable, at least at the high school level, they're not comfortable with something, they contact their teacher, they contact their administrator, and they're given alternative assignments, or they're find alternative things. But what I will say is those books, those materials are always there for students if they want to utilize them. So if a student comes up, no matter who they are, and says, I'd like to learn more about this topic, because that we are legally responsible to be able to give them. So there's a little bit of a given. There's nothing forced upon a student, but there is a plethora of information to be able to provide a student, so if they so choose.
So if my child is in high school, right, and there's an assignment about a book or whatever, it is something about, well, very much into LGBTQ content, and I'm very much not comfortable, or not even just me, my child is not comfortable reading that book. Do I, as a parent, and does that child, as a student, have the ability to say, I would like a different? If they're choosing to do it on their own and they're
That's their choice.
but if they're doing it as a school project or a school assignment and they don't feel comfortable, they do have it.
They have a choice.
And will they be, like, in any way, will there be any kind of backlash against my child?
No.
Because they're not reading that book?
They don't, they're given alternative assignments, alternative assessments they are going through, and they have, as long as they're open to a conversation, they talk, we know about it. It's not that they go through it and then at the end of reading it, they go, I didn't like it and this is why I'm going to go. There's conversations going on. And even in some of these books, and I have to tell you, you're talking about a very few amount of books. Most of our classic books that we use, and usually when you're talking about those type of books that can be, I'm going to use the word controversial, but I'm just going to say different. They're in more elective classes where the students choosing because they already know the works ahead of time. So it is because what we stick to is with the New York State curriculum, but we do provide and offer those that want to learn more about certain subjects, and we don't have bias on what they want to learn about, but they have that active choice. Sure. Are you? I'm somebody to make sure. What you okay with the answer? Okay, make sure. Go ahead, sir.
So you said that they have the choice to not do that side. What does a typical day for a kid look like? Does that mean he has or she has to sit through the class while the teacher is
No. No. If it's something that's so strong, they'll be, they can go to an alternative. Meaning they can go to a different teacher. They can go into an alternative, like a library, and then do an independent assignment. It really depends on what we're talking about. That assignment are we talking about a whole novel? Are we talking about a very short story? Is it one day lesson? Is it a week lesson? Like everything's different, so I can't sit there and give you specifics because I don't know the specifics of it. But what I will tell you is they're not going to sit there and then have to endure that. We find either alternative locations, alternative means, and I have to be honest with you. In my 20 years, that has happened very few times. It doesn't mean it doesn't. It's just something we look to, or we make sure that the teachers and the students and the parents are aware of their options if it has to come to that.
just to follow up?
Sure.
Do you get these kind of questions from other parents, like not say Muslim?
Yeah, absolutely. It's not a question that would be, because listen, everybody has their viewpoints, and everybody has, whether it's religious beliefs, political beliefs, or just personal beliefs, and it's okay to express those, and it's okay to say I'm not comfortable with it. That's what makes this country great. That's why, because you have a right to say I'm not comfortable with this, and then we have a conversation, and then that conversation leads to what we will do. It doesn't mean we're always going to agree. It doesn't mean we may have the same viewpoints, but we're going to at least listen to each other, and we're going to come up with a solution that hopefully is either mutually beneficial or that we will at least respect the decisions that we're going because we were a part of the process. You're welcome.
Only because I get asked this all the time. I'm going to actually ask Dr. Murphy just to reiterate or rephrase if I'm misquoting. So when it comes to the older students, like the junior high school, silent school kids, they will have novels and subjects where that might be against our faith. So all parents, along with the students, have the right to step out of the class, or obviously speaking to the teacher, speaking to the staff of that class, get exempt from that subject or that topic, and then maybe go do a group project or individual project in the library. Understood. Question is, now for elementary school, like Oakwood, Countrywood, Maplewood, I think that's where it hit home for all of us. I'm sure you have your own personal beliefs. Everyone on my left has their own personal beliefs. When a child is in high school or in junior high school, shame on us if they're not, at that level where they should know their faith. But a child who's in Oakwood or a child who's in Birchwood, it's very difficult for them to really comprehend this topic. Honestly speaking, I mean, the kids' parents could be God sent, angels, angelic people, but it's a child is a child. So my question is, number one, just so you can rephrase for the children, because I know all of us are concerned for our children. If a child goes to Oakwood, Birchwood, Countrywood, whatever, Maplewood, now, if I think you mentioned that the subjects, for example, the controversial ones or the difficult ones, they're not taught. But say, for example, so let's start there. It's not taught. Is that correct?
In the elementary level, you have expressed knowledge of what books, and even in the libraries. There are some, what they'll call some works, but they're not given to students unless the parents are very well aware of it. At least in this district, I will only call for South Huntington School District. If there's a student that is younger and is curious about things, or these are books that we have, like same thing in the high school, we have available, but they're not sitting on the shelf for your child to grab. They're after conversations that are with the parent, and they are accepting those conversations. Most of the moral books that you'll have, or I don't want to say more, but life learning books that you'll have in elementary level really deal with diversity or dealing with students. It's not dealing with topics I think that you're concerned about, and only those topics really only are a focus is if after intense parent meetings and there's a reason for that focus and they're involved in that process. No one's going to walk in, grab this book and say, oh, look what I found in the library. It's just not something that should happen.
So the topic isn't part of the curriculum, but the books are available. Some of the books are available in the library. They're not.
Only after parent conversation. It's not like a student can check it out.
Got it. Understood. Okay, that was good. Any questions? Muhammad, your son. You follow me?
No, they'll teach about, so what we'll go through, we will never go and say, they will teach about inclusivity, meaning accepting everyone. They'll talk about how we don't judge other people's preferences or faith. We go on the same line, but it's not where we're going and saying that this is a book that we're going to read to everybody together. So like I said, every case is case by case, but I'm just telling you that would, like if you have, because we'll have, agree or not, we'll have same-sex parents, and they may want their child to have a book that maybe, but we have the books on hand, but those parents know that book is going on because, no, it's not in the class, this would be individual reading. So that's what they would look at.
About kids, right now, the big mental health crisis, especially with kids. So how does the district deal with kids with depression, anxiety, especially if it's affecting the school society?
Obviously, like we talked about, it's conversation. Student services, which I gave, if you look on, I was going to go through at the end, I'll go through that packet with you. There's a list, even at the high school, a list of psychologists, social workers. We have after-school groups and clubs that deal just with mental health. And the scary part is because I think kids have it a lot harder than we did. And not because the world's that much different. It's the same. It can be just as good and just as cruddy as we ever faced. But the difference is the technology that puts it in their face 24 hours a day. And when we got bullied, whether for whatever reason it was, listen, I grew up in an area on Long Island where I was the minority and I was bullied. But when I went home, there was no more bullying because there were no phones, there was no communication. Bullying can be, unfortunately, a 24-hour thing with social media. I mean, it could be 2 o'clock in the morning and your child, my child, any child can be bullied because they keep continuing to go because that's social media. So what I will say is we've had to up and increase our student services, our mental health awareness through our classes, as well as through the services that we provide over by the two gentlemen that talked about it. And that's in every school. Every school is readily available. It's part of our curriculum now. It's taught at the elementary about bullying and about talking to others, talking how you feel, being able to express how you feel, and even in high school, to be more empowered, to stand up and say, I feel like this and I need to talk to somebody. And that's something that if we just taught it in the high school, they never would, because as you know, teenagers don't like to talk to anybody. I ask my son, and I say, how's your day? And the only word I get is fine. But what we have to do and what they learn at an early age is to express their feelings and express how they're feeling. And that could be through feelings of bias, meaning they're feeling like they're being persecuted, to even just their own mental health, meaning I'm feeling depressed. I'm feeling like I need to speak to somebody. And that's what we try to do for all grades. I hope that answers your question, sir. I think there was somebody back here that had a question.
Piggybacking off the LGBTQ comment or question, out of curiosity, in other states or other towns or what have you, you have instances of, like the word, drag queens reading books to children in the library. At what level does that get approved? Is it a mandate by the DOE? Is it the superintendent?
So you're talking about other states. I haven't heard it in this area, but what I will say for us, when we have a visitor, a guest reader, whatever have you, that's approved by. It depends on who it is. If it's an official guest reader, meaning it's not a parent, because sometimes you have parents that guest read. That's something that's approved by either the superintendent or the building principal. But I will tell you that I've never had that occurrence. I've never heard of that occurrence, and I only speak for South Huntington, because again, if somebody like that wanted to come in and guest read at the high school, it would be at a voluntary basis where a student and parents know that this is what they want. If there was like a guest speaker like that, we talk about inclusivity. We talk about being able to involve all students, no matter what their beliefs are and what their preferences are. But that's a voluntary thing. At an elementary, where you're talking like where they come into a class reading, I don't see this district ever doing something like that, just because we want to make sure that it's inclusive for all and not just a viewpoint of one. No problem. Sure.
In your personal view, what do you think is more dangerous for the kids? Is it a lot of screen time that they have, or they, social media, the phones, even the homework is all Chromebook now? I don't see kids writing any longer.
They're writing just not. And I said the same thing with my son, so I agree with you.
Exactly. Go back to the comment you made with this LGBT related is that a lot of people can opt out. So is there a finding so far, or is it
For about screen time, you're talking about?
No.
Okay.
I'm just kind of trying to find the relation between the two. How many people are, from the school level, right? How many people are opting out? Wouldn't it be nice to just give it to those people and instead maybe talk to the kids about not having a lot of screen time?
So what I will say this, and it is a plaguing question. The world's not going to change, and our jobs are going to change, and that screen time is going to be something that I hate. But my son and my grandsons and my grandsons' grandsons are going to have to deal with computers, AI technology, everything else. So I don't think that's going to go anywhere, because I still write, as you know, I still write everything down. Because I see my son and he writes with thumbs faster than I write with all 10 fingers. What I will tell you this is what's detrimental, and where I think, and I wish I had a time machine to go back, where I think what makes technology detrimental, and we've kind of touched upon this, is social media. And social media can be a powerful tool that communicates, informs us, tells us about the world. But we put it in the hands of 5 and 6 years, 7-year-olds that don't understand the power of their words. And that is where, as a school, as a family, as a community, we need to do a better job. And I think we've moved towards doing a good job, but we have a lot of work to go. Because If I could go back, and I always tell my parents, anytime I have to deal with a social media issue, I said, I wish I can go back and find the inventor of Twitter, Facebook, Snapchat, and just erase them from the earth, because then my life would be so much easier. But that's not a real, that's not a real thing. And here's the thing, for every one bad thing that happens with social media, there's a million other things that do. I mean, think about, like I talked about what my school groups are doing, and they raised $1,000. They would have never raised $1,000 without social media. Like, there are positives to social media. It's learning to navigate it as a parent and learning to navigate it as an educator to make sure that all students are using it the right way. So technology is not going to work, and I agree with you, and I've had to even adjust where technology is a part of my life every day, and I have to utilize it, and it's going to get more and more, but it's the teaching of the younger kids on how to utilize it appropriately. AI technology is something we're going through. I can go on a computer and now have it write me a 100-page dissertation, something that took me or Dr. Richards a year to write can be done in an hour. And in the wrong hands, that can be used very wrongly, and that we're not learning. But in the right hands, think of how many things that can do to help others. So it's teaching kids the rights and the wrongs of that a lot better.
So we have about 10 minutes left. So sisters, any of the sisters have questions? Are we good from the sister side? Okay, we got two. So we'll do two on this side and two on this side. I know you have one and Shahid Bhai has one. So we'll do one. So it's four, and then call it a day because we have prayer at 7:45. And if we don't start at 7:45, I will be out of a job. So go ahead.
So any derogatory messages that are on a shirt are immediately, like you said, taken away, turned around, or disciplined. When it comes to, and this is where freedom of speech and First Amendment, which makes this great, a wonderful and terrible country all at once, if there's no derogatory in nature, if there's nothing that's negative, we will have conversations with that student. We'll talk to them, what's their reasons for wearing what they're wearing, talk to the parents, get involved. But it's a very slippery slope when you start to, if there's nothing derogatory on it, to say you can't wear that. That's like saying not another item of clothing that would be, well, we don't want you to wear that because we don't like it. But if there's negativity towards that's on that shirt, or that it's projecting something that could be hurtful to someone, then that goes a little deeper than when we have the right to do that. It's very broad. So it'd have to be like someone's flag could be something that would be very hard to say. If it was a flag in a statement, then that's a little different. So we have a very fine line we have to travel.
What if it's not a flag but a specific print? Like, when I'm not sure if you're aware of it or not, but if it's like an ounce to print, similar to some other print that is worn very commonly in this specific country. So that's what I'm saying. It's not a flag, even that it is. So what about that?
It would have to go case by case, and I would have to research, because we also have to go with legally and make sure that if it's, we always go by the line. If it's offensive, we have conversations, we try to remove it. But without having it have to be a case by case situation. So I would, I mean, I would have go. I would ask the imam. I would go, same thing we did before. If we felt that or if it was reported to us, we would do the same thing. We just saw, I was giving a situation just for that one because it was recent. But we would ask the same thing, our own religious leaders or groups, and say, is there an event that they can go to if they can get more education? But it would, like I said, it was just in that respect, that's what we did because of it. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, well, I'm here, so I would ask him, I'd say, is there a group, is there something that's going on in the community? Is there I would ask families that I know of the Muslim faith, saying, is there something that I can introduce them to so that we can have them a part of that? No problem.
In light of the recent Palestine situation and the rise and the suppression of rise in the Islamic movement, my question is there any incident happened in those schools? Any, what action was taken?
As of right,
Any additional
absolutely. So any, have I heard, in our school, I have had no, I mean, the high school, because I will go as a principal of the high school, I've had no event reported to me that would show Islamophobia. I also think, like we mentioned with our groups, we've been very proactive in trying to get them speak and talk together and remove that outside stimulus and make sure to focus on the people that are in front of them, not from a religious standpoint, but I've known you since I went to first grade. I've known you since, and we were neighbors in this, and let's focus on doing things together, and that has been our proactive approach, and it's been successful. If there was a case where we would feel we would take it very harshly, because just like we did with where we had the Jewish faith, we have to support all students. It doesn't matter who's in front of us. I want to make sure, I want them to not forget who they are, what makes them who they are, but I want to make sure that they understand that they have a right just as anybody else, and that right should be respected, and they should respect others' rights, and be able to live in that space freely and openly, and be able to support one another. So that's really what our goal and our message is at Whitman, and we'll continue to do that. Doesn't mean that one day it will go great, and that doesn't mean we're not going to have issues where we're going to go, but I will give you my word and my promise that we will always address them, because that's the most important thing.
And just to piggyback on what Dr. Murphy said, I'm sorry. If and when situations do come up, they are thoroughly investigated. I'm one of those people, also the rest of us, who take it seriously, and we delve into it, and we look and we speak to all parties, determine what's happening, what's going on, and come up with a resolution. And obviously we also communicate thoroughly with the parents, so the parents in the community also know what's happening and what we're doing to support our students as well.
Leila, go ahead. Should I repeat it? Yeah. She said that if two students are rude to one another in whatever incident, how is that one, I guess, reported, and how is it handled as administrators?
We mediate it. What you learn as an adult, depends on your age, is that we have to live with each other, and that those two students have to work that out with an administrator, with an adult, and we work that out together so that they understand how to address this. So when there isn't an adult there and they become adults, they learn how to manage those feelings and those situations on their own. الله. If you believe in any of that, then this is the Prophet Muhammad. So this one sentence, La ilaha illallah, Muhammad Rasulullah, is the solution of all the things. This is the belief. They can get to know this thing, and then if they believe it. This is my point.
Thank you.
To summarize what Dr. Iqbal, he's like all of our dentists in the community. That Yeah, so I think the best advice, or what he's trying to say, if ever you come across, meaning administration, you ever come across a situation where you might not know, or you're someone, not you guys, because you guys are all doctors, PhD, you guys are well educated. If someone is getting their information or their history from social media or the news, I think it's best that you go to scholars of that field, rightfully so. I can't sit here and speak about Christianity. I'm not learned in Christianity. I can't sit here and speak about Judaism. I'm not a scholar in Judaism. I could possibly speak about Islam because I have the degrees that back me up on it. For you guys, if you guys ever, especially in the positions you are in, if you come across, number one, a situation in school where something with Muslims is happening, you already know the channels to me and the channels to this mosque are always open. You have my phone number, you have my email. Feel free to bother me at any time. Again, I'm an alumni. I have no issues whatsoever coming into school. Maybe if you, for example, yourself, you come across a student, there's an issue, parents come in, have them reach out to me. Because in our faith, we believe that everyone has the right to their opinion. Everyone has the right to believe whatever they believe. Academically, intellectually, do I agree with that person? No. But I'm mandated by God, by Allah, that I respect and honor and serve this person. That this person is a human being. And our God, Allah, He says in the Quran that if a person kills another innocent human being, he's literally, his act is tantamount to genocide. And vice versa, if I save an innocent life, then I get the reward as if I saved the entire mankind. And statements like, verses like that from the Quran, unfortunately, you don't find that on CNN and BBC News and Fox News. But if you guys ever always remember you have our numbers, feel free to reach out. The most important thing for us, and I'll get to that, the second point that I want to make, the first thing is there's open line of communication with the school. Feel free, anytime you want to bother me, you want to bother Dr. Mamoon, any of the responsible, Sister Wajma, you guys can always reach out. Feel free to talk to us, and we will help in whatever capacity we can kind of utilize. So that's number one. Number two, I will ask Dr. Murphy respectfully if he can give me an email and if he can give me a phone number where I can share that with our community. So whenever they feel that they want to speak to someone, because look, I get it. Parents, mothers, fathers, they're all busy working, juggling life, just trying to make ends meet. They don't know who to contact. It's like they're in a hurricane. So if we can facilitate a conversation for them, so they can reach out to maybe an email or a phone number. Hey, this is Dr. John Murphy's secretary's number or email, and we can reach out, and those lines of communication are open to us. That will be a great service. Thank you. And then last and final thing, obviously, again, I thank all of you for coming out. I know it was out of school hours, so you guys are probably not even getting paid for this, but thank you. But remember that this house is not only for us, it's for you guys as well. If you guys ever feel you want to come in, chit-chat about Islam, you want to debate one of us in the middle of the night, you want to have a back and forth chai time, you want to learn about the faith, learn about Islam, because what's happening all over the world, people are now opening up their eyes that, wait, how is it that people they are losing everything but their faith in God is still strong? Everyone wants a piece of that. So if you want to learn that type of faith, you want to learn that type of connection with Allah, with God, you are always welcome to come here. You can just walk in, we'll make sure we get you fed and properly. By the end of it, you'll have a huge belly, so I apologize about that. But again, remember, this house is always open to you, open to all other faculty members. Again, I appreciate you guys coming. Thank you so much. And hopefully we can continue to build on this relationship. Gold becomes gold under fire. Diamond, the beauty of diamond becomes diamond when you keep hitting it and hitting it. Our communities, when we go through tough times, it should only bring us together. It should only strengthen our bonds. So again, I thank you. I thank all of you for coming. And hopefully we can bring you again and then feed you some more with some delicious food. Thank you so much. Appreciate you guys. Yeah. Salah will be at 8 p.m. Salah for Isha will be at 8 p.m.
Allora, presa ciularsi, sei la mada? Sei la mada? Non ti faccio povero.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu alla ilaha illallah, Ashhadu alla ilaha illallah, Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Hayya ala salam, Hayya ala salam, Hayya ala salam, Hayya ala salam. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. La ilaha illallah,